Danick Adams was an 18-year-old woman from Jacksonville, Arkansas. At the center of her life was her 17-month-old daughter, Nevaeh. Family and friends remember Danick as a loving mother with a gentle, hopeful nature. Despite being only 18, she was committed to making a better future for herself and for her child. At the time, she was working part-time at the daycare center inside an ultimate fitness facility in Jacksonville. She was also pursuing her general education development (GED) degree, striving to open new opportunities for herself and to create a stable and nurturing life for Nevaeh. Danick possessed a sweet and optimistic outlook. Those who knew her spoke openly about her kindness and the way she tried to find the best in people. Danick was known for looking out for others and rooting for the underdog. She wanted to make a difference in the lives of children, hoping one day to become a teacher or a child psychologist. The beach held a special place in her heart. She dreamed of one day living by the ocean. Her favorite color was pink, a reflection of the warmth and vibrancy she carried within. On the night of August 15, 2008, Danick finished a shift at the Ultimate Fitness Center and decided to use the tanning bed. Afterward, she applied makeup with a friend before leaving the building. According to witness accounts and confirmed details from police, the two young women exited the building and headed to Danick's car in the parking lot. It was just after midnight. As Danick and her friend approached the car, a masked man appeared and demanded their belongings: purses, cell phones, money, and Danick's car keys. Danick refused to hand over her keys. The man then pulled down his mask and shot her 5 times. According to the witness, she was struck in the back as she tried to run. The assailant took Danick's car, a white Cadillac, and fled the scene. Danick's friend, who witnessed the shooting, managed to escape and called 911. Police and emergency responders arrived quickly, but Danick was pronounced dead at the scene. She was only 18 years old. About 30 minutes later, Jacksonville police spotted Danick's Cadillac and gave chase, but the suspect abandoned the car and fled on foot. A female passenger found inside the car claimed she had no knowledge of the shooting and was released after questioning. Danick's phone was later found in possession of a man who said he had purchased it for $5. These details became critical pieces of evidence in the investigation that followed. Danick's death left an unimaginable void in the lives of those who loved her. She was a mother, a daughter, and a hopeful young woman working to build a brighter future for herself and for Nevaeh. In moments that should have been routine, leaving work and heading home, her life was cut short. The tragedy shook the Jacksonville, Arkansas community, reminding residents of the vulnerability that can accompany daily life. Today, Danick's murder remains an open and unsolved case. Despite witness accounts and evidence recovered, no one has been brought to justice for her death. The Jacksonville Police Department has kept the case active, urging the public to come forward with any information that may help solve it. A reward has been offered for tips leading to an arrest. Danick's story is a reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating cost of violence. At its heart, this tragedy is about a young mother with big dreams, a loving heart, and a hopeful future, a future taken from her and from the daughter she cherished. The details of her death remain a matter of public record, and her family and friends continue to seek the justice she deserves. Danick Adams was just 18 years old when she became a mother. At the heart of her life was her daughter Nevaeh, a little girl who was only 17 months old when tragedy struck. Those who knew Danick spoke openly about how deeply she embraced motherhood and how her love for Nevaeh shaped every decision she made. Even as a teenager, Danick demonstrated a remarkable sense of responsibility and commitment. To Danick, her daughter was more than just a child. She was the reason to work harder, to dream bigger, and to find strength in moments when life felt challenging. In the months before her death, Danick worked part-time at the daycare center located within an Ultimate Fitness facility in Jacksonville, Arkansas. This job was more than a source of income for her. It reflected the nurturing nature she carried within. The role connected her to children every day and inspired her to pursue a future in which she could continue making a difference in their lives. Helping and caring for others came naturally to Danick, making the daycare an ideal place for her to spend her working hours. Danick was also making significant efforts to further her own education. At 18, she was working towards obtaining her General Education Development (GED) diploma. This was an important goal for her, a goal that represented more than academic success. To Danick, a GED was a stepping stone towards a brighter future for herself and for Nevaeh. It was a symbol of the stability she hoped to create for her family. Danick possessed a quiet resilience, a determination that spoke to the strength she possessed despite her young age and the challenges she faced as a mother. More than anything, Danick was hopeful about the future. She spoke openly about the path she wanted for herself. She hoped one day to become a teacher or possibly a child psychologist, a role that would allow her to continue nurturing and supporting others. This dream reflected Danick's deep understanding of the importance of compassion and guidance, especially in the lives of children. It was a dream rooted in kindness and shaped by her own experience as a young mother. Danick was described by friends and family as someone with a sweet and hopeful outlook on life. She possessed a loving heart and a belief in the potential for better days ahead. Even at 18, she embraced parenthood and personal growth with a rare sense of grace. The fact that she was working towards her GED and making a living at a daycare underscored her resilience and the strength she possessed to balance multiple responsibilities. To Danick, motherhood was a central part of her identity. Nevaeh was her source of joy and purpose, and every effort she made, every shift she worked, every class she attended, was aimed at providing a brighter future for the two of them. In moments when life felt challenging, Danick remained hopeful, rooted in a deep love for her daughter and an unwavering belief in a better tomorrow. Although Danick's life was tragically cut short, her role as a loving mother and dedicated student shines through every piece of information confirmed about her. It reminds us that she was more than a headline or a statistic. She was a young woman making a genuine effort to build a life for herself and her child. The threads of her story, a hopeful future, a nurturing nature, and a deep love for her daughter, form a picture of a life that was precious and worth remembering. In doing so, we honor the person Danick was and the path she was creating, one that ended far too soon. Danick Adams was known to those who loved her as a young woman with a genuine, hopeful, and open heart. At just 18 years old, she possessed a remarkable warmth that drew people toward her. Danick was the kind of person who treated others with kindness and understanding, regardless of who they were or where they came from. Friends and family often spoke about how she always tried to find the best in people, looking beyond appearances or circumstances to focus on the heart of an individual. Danick possessed an outlook that set her apart from many her age. Even when faced with the challenges that came with being a young mother, she chose to approach life with optimism and grace. Those closest to her recalled how she rooted for the underdog, always hopeful that things could and would get better. In moments when life felt unfair or difficult, she refused to succumb to anger or despair. Instead, she embraced compassion, extending it to those around her and striving to foster connections rooted in understanding and trust. Her hopeful nature shaped every area of her life. It shaped the way she treated friends and colleagues, making her a person others felt safe turning to for support or a listening ear. It shaped the way she approached parenting, as she worked to build a nurturing environment for her young daughter. It shaped the way she viewed herself, allowing her to continue pursuing a brighter future despite the pressures and responsibilities she carried. Danick's friends and family often spoke about this quality when describing her character. They recalled how she was someone who smiled easily, spoke openly, and offered kindness without expecting anything in return. In moments when those around her felt misunderstood or overlooked, Danick possessed an instinctive ability to uplift them. The warmth and sincerity she brought to every interaction became part of how people remembered her, a reminder of how deeply she valued connections and how openly she embraced life. Although Danick was only 18, she possessed a sense of emotional maturity and depth that shaped the relationships she built. She inspired those who knew her to approach life with more understanding and more compassion. In a world that can often feel harsh and disconnected, Danick's hopeful and optimistic nature served as a quiet beacon, a reminder that genuine kindness can transform moments, relationships, and lives. At the core of this hopeful nature was a deep belief in belonging. Danick carried herself as someone who felt rooted in the connections she made, a person who worked hard to foster spaces where others felt valued and seen. Even when faced with moments that could have caused doubt or despair, she refused to give up on people or on herself. This resilience, combined with her hopeful nature, shaped the person she was and left a profound impression on those who crossed her path. Today, when friends and family remember Danick, this is one of the traits that shines brightest. They recall a person who met the world with a hopeful heart, who treated others with warmth and grace, and who refused to let life's challenges extinguish that light. Danick's optimistic nature is a vital part of her legacy, a reminder that even the simplest acts of kindness can have a lasting and meaningful impact. In honoring this part of who she was, we honor Danick herself, a young woman defined by a hopeful, loving, and open-hearted approach to life. Throughout her young life, Danick Adams carried within her a quiet but determined sense of purpose. At just 18 years old, she was already envisioning a future that was shaped by her passions, her nurturing nature, and the deep love she felt for her daughter Nevaeh. Despite the responsibilities and demands of being a young mother, Danick refused to be defined or limited by her circumstances. Instead, she embraced her role and used it as a foundation for a hopeful and ambitious path forward. Danick was working diligently towards obtaining her General Education Development (GED) diploma, a critical step she knew would open doors for her and enable her to pursue the career she felt called to. The effort required to balance work, motherhood, and studies spoke volumes about her resilience and the strength of her character. Danick was not content with simply making do. She aimed to build a future that would provide stability, fulfillment, and a sense of belonging for herself and for Nevaeh. Those who knew Danick best understood that she possessed a deep affinity for children and felt a strong desire to help nurture and guide them. This quality shaped the dreams she held for herself. Danick spoke openly about wanting to one day become a teacher or a child psychologist. These aspirations weren't just abstract ideas for her. They reflected who she was at her core. Helping and supporting others came naturally to Danick, making a career working with children a natural extension of the person she was. Her role at the daycare within the Ultimate Fitness facility in Jacksonville was more than a job. It was an early glimpse into the path she hoped to walk. Surrounded by children every day, Danick found moments of joy and purpose. These moments offered a sense of belonging and a reminder of why she was pursuing her GED and striving for more. In a space where she could express care and kindness to others, she felt rooted and hopeful about where her efforts might lead. Danick's aspirations weren't limited to career and education. She held a quiet but vivid dream of one day living by the beach. The sound of the ocean, the serenity of the shore, these were sights and moments she longed to experience and build a life around. To her, the beach was more than a location. It was a symbol of peace and belonging, a space where she hoped she and her daughter could create memories that would define their future. Through all of these aspirations, one central theme emerged. Danick was a person who refused to settle for less when it came to shaping a hopeful, nurturing life. Even at a young age, she possessed a sense of purpose rooted in love, resilience, and a deep belief in herself. Those who watched her navigate the challenges of early motherhood and working towards her education witnessed a quiet strength, a reminder that a person can carry both grace and determination even when the path forward is challenging. Although Danick's life was cut short, her dreams remain a testament to the person she was. They reflect a young woman who refused to be defined by circumstance, and who instead chose to build a life shaped by compassion, belonging, and the belief that brighter days were ahead. Today, Danick's hopes for herself and her daughter stand as a reminder of how profound and precious a young person's aspirations can be, and how deeply those aspirations can continue to resonate long after a life has ended. Danick Adams's death left an indelible mark on the people who knew and loved her. At just 18 years old, she was a daughter, a friend, a hopeful young woman, and above all, a loving mother to her 17-month-old daughter Nevaeh. The tragedy of her loss was felt deeply within her family and across her community in Jacksonville, Arkansas. Those who remembered Danick spoke openly about the void her death created, a space that no one could fill and that no one would forget. To Danick's family and friends, she was a person defined by warmth, resilience, and a hopeful nature. Even in moments when life was challenging, Danick refused to be defined by doubt or despair. Instead, she chose kindness and embraced moments of belonging and connection. The loss of such a person rippled far beyond the immediate scene of the crime. It reshaped the lives of those closest to her and left an ache that words can only begin to describe. Danick's death is remembered as a moment that shaped not only her family, but also the larger Jacksonville community. The tragedy spoke to the vulnerability that countless families experience when faced with acts of violence. To those who cherished Danick, this was not just the loss of an individual life, it was the loss of a future, a hopeful path that Danick had worked hard to build for herself and for her daughter. In the months and years following the murder, Danick's family held her memory close. They spoke openly about the kind of person she was, a loving, hopeful young woman with aspirations that were rooted in caring for others. They spoke about her role as a mother, a role that came naturally to her and shaped every decision she made. They remembered the warmth in her smile, the sincerity of her words, and the depth of her heart. Today, Danick's legacy lives on in those who remember her and in the stories they tell about her life. The moments she shared with friends and family, the quiet strength she carried with her every day, and the hopeful nature that defined her character have become threads in the larger fabric of her story. To those who knew her, Danick is remembered as someone who possessed a rare blend of resilience and kindness, a person who rooted for the underdog and believed in finding the best in others. For the wider community, Danick's death stands as a reminder of how fragile life can be and how deeply one person can affect the lives of many. The tragedy of her loss reminds us of the urgency of seeking justice and of working to create a world where moments like these no longer occur. Danick's legacy is one of belonging, hopeful striving, and a deep love for the people who were central to her life. Although Danick's life was cut short, the impact she left is long-lasting. Through the memories shared by friends and family, she is kept alive. Remembered as more than a headline, more than a statistic, Danick was a young woman whose heart was rooted in kindness, whose strength inspired others, and whose love shaped the life of her daughter. In honoring Danick, those who remember her carry forward the lessons she embodied, making sure that her story and her legacy remain a vital part of their lives and their community. Danick's death is not just a chapter in one person's story, it is a chapter in a larger narrative about violence and loss that affects countless families and communities. The investigation into her murder serves as a reminder of the responsibility that law enforcement, the judicial system, and the public all share in seeking justice. The search for answers goes on, fueled by the memory of Danick's life, the impact she left, and the hopes of a family still waiting for closure. Danick Adams' murder was not an isolated tragedy. Her death became part of a larger conversation about the reality of gun violence and its deep and lasting effects on the city of Jacksonville, Arkansas. At the time of Danick's murder, and in the years that have followed, Jacksonville has grappled with instances of violence that have reshaped neighborhoods and left families seeking justice and closure. Danick's story stands as one chapter in an ongoing struggle that has impacted countless people across the area. The circumstances of Danick's death, an armed attack in a public space targeting an unsuspecting young woman, captured the attention of the community. The tragedy underscored how quickly everyday moments can turn into moments of crisis when a weapon is introduced. Danick, a loving mother and hopeful student, became a reminder of how violence can disrupt the routine of daily life and claim those least expecting it. To her friends and family, the brutal nature of the crime emphasized the vulnerability of people going about their everyday lives. For the wider Jacksonville area, Danick's death represented a call for accountability and awareness. In the aftermath of her murder, the case became one of many examples where the initial urgency of an investigation gave way to the slow march of time, making it harder for families to find the answers they deserve. The fact that Danick's murder remained unsolved brought attention to a reality felt by many families across the area. Despite the best efforts of authorities and witnesses, certain crimes can linger for years, leaving families with more questions than answers. Danick's story resonated within a larger conversation about gun violence in Jacksonville and across the state. It brought attention to the vulnerability of families and communities when a weapon is used to claim a life. In a city where moments of quiet routine can turn suddenly tragic, Danick became a symbol of the countless lives impacted by this crisis, lives defined not only by loss, but also by the strength and resilience of those left behind. Although statistics about gun violence were not a part of the confirmed information available, Danick's case spoke to a reality witnessed by many within Jacksonville and across Arkansas. It emphasized the urgent need for communities, authorities, and families to work together in the ongoing effort to reduce violence and to seek justice for those who have been lost. Today, Danick's death serves as a reminder that the conversation about gun violence is more than a headline or a statistic. It is about people, mothers, daughters, friends, and loved ones whose lives have been forever altered. It is about the spaces where families live and work, and about the urgency of making those spaces safe. Danick's story shines a light on the strength of a community grappling with its pain, seeking answers, and working towards a future where tragedy is no longer a routine headline, and where every person can walk, work, and live in peace. Danick Adams' story is one that stands as a reminder of the profound impact one person can have in a short life. At just 18 years old, Danick was a young mother, a hopeful student, and a person defined by her kindness and resilience. Her life was shaped by her role as a parent to Nevaeh, the 17-month-old daughter who meant the world to her. Danick's life was built upon moments of nurturing, moments of belonging, and moments of striving for a better future, moments that now define her legacy. Danick was more than a headline. To those who knew her best, she was a beacon of warmth and strength. She possessed a hopeful nature that refused to give in to despair, even when life felt challenging. Danick worked towards obtaining her GED while holding a part-time job at the Ultimate Fitness daycare. These weren't just obligations. They were steps towards a future she imagined for herself and for her daughter. She hoped one day to become a teacher or a child psychologist, roles that reflected her deep love for nurturing and supporting others. Although Danick's life was cut short in a tragic and brutal way, those moments do not define the entirety of her story. What truly defined her was how she lived, with resilience, grace, and a hopeful heart. To her friends and family, Danick will always be remembered for trying to find the best in people, for rooting for the underdog, and for being the person others felt safe turning to for understanding and comfort. Today, Danick's legacy lives in the memories of those who loved her and in the heart of her daughter, Nevaeh. The quiet strength she carried and the warmth she offered have left a context mark that will never fade. Those moments and memories matter because they speak to the essence of who she was: a loving mother, a hopeful young woman, and a person with a future that promised to benefit those around her. Danick's death reminds us of the urgent need for justice, accountability, and a more hopeful future for families impacted by violence. It reminds us how quickly moments can be taken and how deeply a single loss can affect an entire community. But it also reminds us that a person's life is more than the tragedy that ended it. Danick's life was a testament to resilience and belonging, a reminder that even in moments of heartbreak, the memories of love and belonging can survive. As friends, family, and a hopeful daughter carry Danick's memory forward, she lives on in every thought, every quiet remembrance, and every moment of belonging that she inspired. Danick's story is one that will be remembered for its warmth, its strength, and its hopeful heart, a legacy that will continue to matter long after her tragic death.